Hey, what's going on, guys? So it's John here with Just Thoughts. Thank you for participating, Greg. How's your day going, man?
Not bad, not bad.
Good to hear. You sound like you're American. Is that right?
Close enough. I'm Canadian.
Canadian. That's what's up, man. You guys have Justin Trudeau over there, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I like his hair, man. He's got really good hair. I think that yeah,
It's a sad thing that that's the best thing you can say about the guy. He's
yeah,
got good
no.
hair.
He has a really good understanding of like a lot of the what do you call it? A lot of the benefits that you could create if you are able to get everybody on board with having the correct mentality towards how we're going to direct nations. You know what I mean? Like his dad, if I'm not mistaken, he was a politician too, right?
Yeah, he was the premier of Canada as well. It's kind of
That's
like the
right.
president.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah, those are one of the family legacy type things that are going on here in over there in Canada. Do you guys
yeah.
like that? Do you like monarch type systems?
Not usually. No, there's a lot of people who are against it simply for that reason, because they figure it shouldn't come. You shouldn't have two from the same family because you're going to get the same thing.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's one of the hardships that a lot of people usually don't realize in politics. I think that the class system also works in the same manner. Usually, when people get decent jobs or they're able to find decent work placement and they're able to receive resources and they have the majority of the opportunities, it's due to the fact that the people that they know are a part of a certain system. And if you can uphold that system, then the majority of the people that are appreciating that system don't necessarily have to worry about other people, infiltrators, basically being able to take over some of the infrastructure that we use so that we can keep up certain monopolistic type systems. So, over in Canada, can you tell me a little bit about the beneficial? I think you guys have a universal basic health care. Is that correct?
Um, a lot of people say that, yeah, we have this universal basic health care. It's not as universal as you'd think. There's a lot of places where it's not available simply because of logistics. I'm in small town Saskatchewan. If you need to have a serious procedure, you have cancer, you have something serious with your heart, you have to travel out of province to go to a specialist. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so you're limited, seriously limited by what you're able to get for healthcare. You have basic healthcare. Okay, I stub my toe, I burn my hand. I go to the walk-in clinic because it's free. There's so many people there abusing that system that it's not available for someone who seriously needs it. So it works on some degree, but on the other hand, there's too many people who abuse that, and it's not available to people who really need it. So I don't think it's all the answer that everybody thinks it is.
Right, yeah. One of the difficulties that we're having here in the United States, right, is that we haven't been able to pass a basic health care. And if I'm not mistaken, I've mentioned this in a previous video, that we're one of the only developed nations that hasn't decided if it would be helpful for us to do so. And what it's
Yeah.
looking like is happening, in specifically talking about the healthcare industry, is that a lot of the hardship that's usually happening is due to the fact that there is a an interplay that happens with our monetary system that is incentivized in a certain manner, right? So you can't allow certain mechanisms to unfold without having some monetary benefits added onto it. And when that happens,
Okay,
usually,
so you say, okay, we got healthcare, but it's still the case of if you want to have good healthcare, you still have to pay for it. Like yeah, you can go see the doctor and get a band-aid for your finger, but if you want to go to a doctor, a good doctor, and have it dealt with properly, you still have to pay for that, just like you do in the States. And the other side of that is you have a dentist. Okay, what does it cost for you to go to a dentist and get a filling?
right now I'm 25, so technically speaking, I still have access to my parents' healthcare. Next year, obviously, I'll be off, so I'll have to get my own healthcare.
Okay,
But
so but here, uh, okay, I'm 35, so I have my own healthcare. But even with that, it pays what, 70% of your bill. You're still paying $150, which is only 30% of the total bill. So yeah, you have the basic healthcare, but for anything like you got to go to a dentist, you got to go to a chiropractor, you're paying huge amounts of money for that kind of thing here.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, you had the opportunity to speak with Justin Trudeau himself, right? And he said, "Hey, Greg, what do you think that we could do so that we could have better healthcare? You've obviously noticed that there are certain discrepancies that aren't helpful to the majority of the population. So how can we change this to make it a little bit better for those people that might not have the money or the resources to get that root canal or to get that surgery that you would have to get out?" What would you
No,
tell
I'm
Justin?
not. I'm not going to tell Justin anything.
Come on, man. Let's say he was
That
already
guy,
listening to this, Greg. Pretend for me.
that guy, and any politician, they have their hands tied so hard. Even if they, I mean, these guys, they want the best for Canada. You know that. Any politician that's in power, they're there because they want to make change. But their hands are tied so viciously by all of the democracy that's involved that they can't create any change that they want to change, even if they did want to. So me telling him, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, it's not going to help. Why would I?
Okay, so you think there's more of an issue due to how politics are being taken over by the majority of people that care more about money and power structures than the actual citizens of their nation. Is that correct?
Greed, yeah, yeah. Greed is the basic human disease that until we figure out how to fix greed, you're not going to fix anything.
Okay, so it sounds like okay. I like that. That was a really interesting, interesting thing to say. So, do you think that there are humanistic boundaries that we have been unable to pass due to factors that a lot of people usually are unable to control, such as greed, for example, right? Greed
Yeah,
would be one of those. The
yeah.
desire for more, right? Those are humanistic traits that we have been unable to diminish due to the benefits that we are able to receive and the world that we have created. So you're talking more of a beneficial system that would be internally that you could change
Yeah.
had you been able to create certain systems. Yeah, I like that. That was a really interesting thing
You
to say.
see, my political view, like, okay, I don't I don't really believe. Okay, I'm a Christian. I'm religious. I don't believe that mankind is ever going to be able to fix that. I believe that a higher power is going to have to step in. And that's why I don't really have a strong political opinion one way or the other. Technically, I'm politically neutral because I don't think we're going to fix that problem.
Yeah. What usually ends up happening is that people start to lose faith in our governmental structures due to the fact that some of the governmental structures that we have set in place don't match up to the capability of being able to provide some of the benefits that they would feel internally, right? So they lose faith due to the fact that it doesn't match what they had imagined it was going to be. And when you have those situations happen, what ends up happening is that a lot of people they start telling other people, and other people start losing faith, and the hardships never get changed. We aren't able to create the laws and the policies that would benefit everybody. Yeah,
That's an
I'm right
interesting.
there with you.
Yeah. Uh, but on the one side, you're still thinking that this is something that out, we would affect change. If we were able to figure out, okay, look, you're disillusioned, and so you're not going to try, and you're going to tell other people that you're disillusioned, and they're not going to try. See, I don't think even if we tried, even if we got people even if we got people who were more interested in making change and they had the correct power and the correct motives, I don't think they could. I don't think that's a human ability.
Right. Well, I've explained it in a previous video. It's due to the fact that what happened, from my perspective, what happens is that the elitists, we'll call them elitists, right? They
Yeah.
attempt to select individuals that would be able to uphold these power structures, right? So they'll see a young promising individual that looks like they could handle the ability to be in a position of power, right? And as long as that individual had certain qualities and characteristics that they checked mark, that they were able to follow through with, they had certain ideals that the people that are choosing them agree with, then they can rise to that position of power, because essentially what they're doing as representatives is representing the elitist class, right? And what
Yeah.
happens, like here in America, like that's what I think has happened, is that the majority of all the politicians and the political figures that we have are representing 20% of the population that is essentially able to control all of the monetary policy. They're able to control all of the foreign affairs that we have. They're able to control all of the situations that we're going through, not only as a nation but also globally, right? And on top of that, we're having a situation where, over the last 8 years, and I've mentioned this before, over the Obama administration, we had the situation where the globalization effect was trying to take hold not only of America, but it was going everywhere, right? And right now we're seeing a situation where communist China has implemented like a credit system, and then in Canada right now, you guys
Yeah,
are
I've
having
heard of
that
that.
exact same situation, right? Your information
Yeah.
for COVID, right, is being sent to credit centers. And so, from your perspective, are you aware of that first? And what would you like to change that? Or do you think a credit system, a social credit system, is beneficial for your people?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that setup. I haven't really looked into that at all, so I can't give an informed opinion. Really, it's I didn't know that that was happening. How do I feel about that? You know, I
Greg, you
it's
gotta you gotta get on board, man. You gotta make sure that you're aware of these things, because you can't have conversation with people that want to be able to push society forward if you're not capable enough. Come on, Greg, help me out here.
yeah, that's it. That's it. We do have to be informed. I absolutely agree with you. I think the world would be a better place the more information we were able to get. But unfortunately, a lot of the information we get is controlled. And so you get the information that somebody wants you to have for their
Agenda.
agenda. Yeah. So can you make an informed decision? I don't know if you totally can.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like the capture of our attention, I think, is really crucial in being able to understand how the direction of the world is going to go, right? And one of the other things that I thought would is going to be helpful on that same idea, right? So during the Obama administration, we had a serious push towards a globalization effort that happened, right? And then immediately afterwards, right, we did a hard right turn, and all of a sudden we had the Trump administration, and with the Trump administration, we had multiple nations that decided to do the exact same thing. We had Boris Johnson over in Europe, that decided he wanted to go the opposite way, right? And so, from my perspective, the way that you would be able to prevent a globalization push is by creating some difficulty, some type of hostility within the nations that are being able to lead the opposite of the globalization event, the inclusion event, the nationalistic event, right? And that's what I think the this pandemic has been able to do. It's shown the opportunity to that you can, if you can distract the population enough, and then you can impose certain boundaries and certain mentalities, and then you can use psychological mechanisms such as masks to be able to create this mentality that the majority of people aren't able to change or influence society because they don't have the capability, because nobody's really representing them, because all the people that are supposed to be representing them are a part of an elitist class. I think this is a cycle that we have seen year over year, and it's happened. I think in the '80s this happened, and I wasn't born then, but I were you in around in the '80s?
Yeah, yeah, 80, well, born in 83, but yeah.
Okay, okay. Does this time look like a time period that you have been through?
No, nothing's like it has. You talk to anybody, doesn't matter what age they are, grandparents, great grandparents, young people. This system just keeps getting worse. It doesn't seem. I haven't seen any one person say, "Oh yeah, this is better than it used to be."
Yeah, one of the
But
things that
that's just the way we're going right now. Until they, like, I think what's going to happen is they are going to come out with a solution to this. No, hear me out. I'm not saying that they're going to fix everything, but they're going to think that they've come out with a solution to this. They're going to be the world on a global scale. They're going to unite in a sense, not completely, maybe not politically, not religiously, whatever, but they're going to have a sense of unity, and they're going to say that they fixed this problem, and then serious change is going to happen after that. They're going to attack long held beliefs, long held systems that have always worked in the past, because, okay, now everything's new. Now everything is different. So let's implement this change. I think that's what's going to be in our lifetime. We're going to see some changes that are completely unforeseeable until we get there. It goes along with, I don't know, the way things have gone down through history, the revolution, the industrial revolution. Up until that point, people were doing things a certain way, very unmechanized, very manual labor oriented. And then when that came around, changes happened on a global scale that people weren't ready for. I think that's what this is leading us up to. Same thing for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. So one of the problems that I've seen, right, is this situation that's happening. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the fact that like three generations before my generation, so millennial generation. What's your generation called? It's generation, is it X?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
So three generations, right? Let's use them as blocks, right? So the third generation ahead of my generation has had a certain amount of money when they were at age 35, right? Your
Yeah.
generation has had one third of that amount of wealth, and my generation is going to have one third of that amount of wealth, and the generation my children are going to have. I think those are the statistics. I could be completely wrong about the numbers themselves, but what I'm
Well,
trying to get across is the fact that a lot of people usually don't try to believe that the majority of the things that are happening are due to the fact that we're creating systems that are making people impoverished, and we're forcing them to essentially be impoverished due to the fact that you can make sure that certain ethnic minorities as well as certain generations either have less or more. And what's happening is we're steadily losing money inside of the generations, right? And
yeah.
along with that exact idea, like you had mentioned the
Have you ever heard the tale of how to? Sorry, you were cracking up. I didn't know if you were still talking.
Right, sure. Yeah, so now I was going to mention you had mentioned the Industrial Revolution, right? Well, when the Industrial Revolution happened, there were certain groups of individuals, right, that had the majority of the technology, so that they can create so that they would have the majority of the power, right? And what has happened now is that we've had the same type of situation that happened. We introduced the creation of the internet, and the creation of the internet created some of it leveled out and it democratized freedom of speech, right? And a lot of the
Yeah.
situations that are happening right now is that exact same situation, that revolution is happening now, and the people that have the majority of the power to create and control the infrastructure that we use so that we can communicate have a certain agenda, and they happen to be focused on the globalization effort, right? So, in my opinion, what I think is going to end up happening is that the monetary policy that we have is going to become less important as the mediums of exchange that we use so that we would be able to buy things, so that we can buy houses, right? The technology that we have is ahead of our humanistic mentality towards how these systems operate. Like, for instance, right? There are certain countries right now where you cannot use cash. That's one example, right? Why is cash important? In my opinion, cash gives you the availability to be able to access modes of exchange without it being electronically funded, without it being essentially controlled by an exterior force, right?
Okay, but on the other side, okay, I lived in Ecuador
Mhm.
when they switched from the Ecuadorian sucre, their dollar, to the American dollar. And before that happened, you would see 100 sucre bills just lying in the street, because that went in 3 years, in just 3 years, that went from being able to buy groceries to worth less than a penny. It was literally useless monetary gain. So this money that everybody was working so hard to get all of a sudden became completely useless. Everybody turned back into the barter system because at least I know that, hey, if I work for you for an hour doing something I can do, now you can do something for me or provide me with a service or a product. Uh, so yes, the monetary system has its place here in a world where it you actually can hold cash in your pocket that's worth something. But in a lot of countries, they can't use money because the
The fiat currency system that we have is broken, and it doesn't
yeah,
help the majority of people due to the fact that it's created to help a minority, which would be the ultra rich, the super wealthy, the people that don't necessarily have to participate in the day-to-day operations that everybody else have to essentially participate. Is
yeah,
that what you're trying
I,
to say, or am I
sure,
incorrect?
yeah, no, that sounds similar, but you're I wasn't blaming someone for it. I was just saying that it sounds like it doesn't matter where you are, because yeah, there's people who are ultra rich because they worked hard to get it or because they were in the right place at the right time, whatever. And they have the ability to do what they want. But do you blame them for that? Do you say that they're the cause of this problem? I don't know that for sure because
So you're
uh,
you're
you,
you're
you
pro hyper elitist. You're pro having extreme amounts of wealth, correct? Have you read a book called Winner Take All? Have you read that?
hold on. You said that you made a statement and then agreed with yourself. So no, you can't do that. No,
Thank you, man. I like that. Keep going. Keep good job, man. Keep going. Keep going.
uh, pro something. No, I don't think I understand the fact that there are people out there that do that, that have that ability and have that wealth. But whether or not I'm for that or against that, it doesn't really matter. They have it, and I can live my life. I can organize my life in such a way that it really doesn't affect me. I'm a blue collar worker. I work with my hands. I provide a service that people need, and I'm comfortable with that. And it makes my life better knowing that I've helped the community by providing a service. I'm never going to get ultra rich doing it, but I have a lot of self worth because of it, and I feel good about that. So, am I against those people that have that? No, I don't think they're bad, necessary evil.
Right,
That.
right. Okay,
Uh,
so one of the ways that I like to look at it, right? So just to mention that book one more time, Winner Take All, right? What it tries to do is it tries to explain some of the situations that are going on in our society and the mentality that we have towards how we view how society is going and how the ultra rich are being able to essentially influence majority of the public and taking away the power from the political system that we use, right? So, from my perspective, the way that I like to, one of the things that I appreciated from that book was being able to understand that if you have enough wealth, if you have enough, we'll call it clout or capability or celebrity status, right? If you have enough of that, what you're essentially able to do is to change the structure that we use so that we can create change, so that we can create policy. And when you remove power from our political system, it not only damages our democracy, it also creates situations where people are like, why am I going to vote or why am I going to care about our political system if all the people that are creating change are the people that are super wealthy? So let me just focus on money instead of focusing on the political change. And then once you have that kind of mentality, what ends up happening is that you no longer start to look at things from a right versus wrong type of situation. You start looking at it from game theoretics, and then you start using the exact same mentality that most people that are hyper wealthy. It just happens to be of a greed factor. You start thinking that this is me, this is mine. I'm going to make sure that I get my nuts so that the majority of people that are trying to essentially take over what's me and mine don't have the capability. And then what I think is going to end up happening is that the loss of faith in our structures of democracy is going to end up creating some of the civil unrest that people are going to say, hey, you know what? We have to create change. We have to start a revolution, just like you mentioned. We have to make sure that a lot of the people, in case of the situation where the structures that we have no longer are stable enough to have a civilization, to have a democracy, that's what's going to end up happening. People are just going to start not believing in the systems that we have, and that's That's the biggest problem that I can foresee in the future, is that we're creating generations of people that are either going to be, hyper wealthy due to the fact that they've been given accesses that other people haven't been given, due to the fact that they've been given opportunities that other people haven't been given. And some of the things that would be able to equalize the starting line, like you had just mentioned, right? Like it doesn't affect you necessarily. You work with your hands, which is great, right? Which is a good thing, right? But there are going to be individuals in the future that don't necessarily find it appreciable to work with their hands, that you like to use their mind, that want to use the new
Yeah,
technologies that we have access to, and use that instead of doing
which I
things that they
totally
might not
respect.
necessarily appreciate.
Which I totally respect, because if everybody was a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician, great, but you don't have the infrastructure to use those skills. So you have to have people with different skills, but everybody has to be able to advance culture. Everybody has to be able to have the right motive for doing what they're doing. Because if all of your motive is based on, I'm doing this so I can get rich, so that I can feel more powerful, that's not good. The good book, the Bible, it says the love of money is the root of all evil, not money. And that's why I say I'm not against people who have money. I don't think that's wrong, but it's the love of money. If that's your only focus, then no, I think that's wrong, and I think that's going to have to stop.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. All right, so Greg, you've done great, and thank you so much for having conversation. A lot of people usually don't like to engage in intellectual discussion because usually it leads to some hostility and there's debate and stuff, and people don't like
Yeah,
to do that nowadays, right? So
no,
let's say,
I
for
never get
instance,
mad. I like to
no,
listen. I like to learn. I learned something from you, man. Thank you.
yeah, without a doubt. Let's say, for instance, we had the opportunity to create a basic income, tuition, and healthcare. Do you think that that would even the playing field and create equality amongst the starting line that people have in life?
See, okay, now this might be a controversial thought. I don't know, but I'm against people who sit there and wait for someone to give them something,
Mhm.
because I think that is just as dangerous as the other side of it, the elite who don't have to do anything, and they have no problems. If I just sat there and waited for a welfare system to look after my needs, that's going to collapse society just as bad as that elitist few who are taking everything.
Mhm.
I think if we all do our best to earn what we need to work, whatever it is we're working at, whether it's physical, mental, even the arts, they're providing something that we need as a society. If you're focused on that, then I think, yeah, you should have everything you need to be able to function. Your healthcare, your food, your clothing, your shelter.
Right, yeah. So what I usually hear, right, when people don't want that, usually it's due to the fact that they appreciate how certain structures are created, how they're already set up, right? And one of the difficulties I usually see is that a lot of the people that say no, that that's a bad idea, they are beneficiaries of the majority of the wealth that other people have been able to gain, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that if you were in a different position, like let's say, for instance, you didn't necessarily have all the benefits that you've been able to receive. So I'm assuming that you had a decent living situation, right? You didn't necessarily have to worry about some hardships that a lot of other people that have to worry about, especially if you're in the lower levels of the social and economic strata,
Yeah.
right? If you're
Dude,
in
no,
that
no,
situation,
you're assuming something that isn't true. When I was 13, my father, I have six siblings. We lived at home. When I was 13, my father fell off a roof, broke his back, his spine. He was in the hospital for over a year with no EI um, compensation. So we were in poverty at the time. Uh, we lived on 3 pounds of hamburger and pasta. The six of us lived on that for a week. Um, yeah, no, I've seen some pretty tough times, wondering where the next meal's coming from, which taught me that, two things. One, you can work your butt off. My father was an amazing provider. I respect him. Uh, and yet even no matter how good you are, you can still fall upon hard times. But if you've worked to help society, then you should be able to have the benefits of that same thing. So eventually we got on workers' compensation, and it provided for our needs for a couple of years until my father was back up on his feet and providing for the family. So that kind of a system, I appreciate that. On the other hand, people who don't provide, don't work to get that and still have those benefits, I don't know. I don't think that's right either.
Yeah, there's a. I was just gonna mention there's a really common trait, right? And it usually has to do with like there are certain common traits that usually people have when they say, hey, you know what, we shouldn't have basic income, basic tuition, and basic healthcare. And the problem that I see is that all of the people that say no are all essentially the same people, right? And then the
Yeah.
people that say, hey, you know what, you should have these things are essentially on the opposite side of that. So when I see situations like that happening, I'm like, okay, there is usually a power structure that's happening, and there's usually some like difficulty that people have with the idea of somebody essentially replacing some of the structures that have been created over the last like hundreds of years, right? And when you like flip that situation over, people usually don't like that. People usually think that that's a bad thing because what's going to end up happening is that the people that were usually in the front are going to be at the back. So with that being said, hey man, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here, Greg. You've done great. Appreciate it, brother.
Nice to hear you, John.